विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनाम् पदमिच्छन्ति भेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानाम् पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचं ब्राह्मन् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे ततब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवं ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनं व्यात्तम् इष्टं मनिषाण अमुं मनिषाण सर्वं मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः.
Namaste, my apologies. I forgot to push the publish button when I started the chanting. When I came back, that's when I realized it. So I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I'm happy that we are starting the class in time, even though you didn't get the full chanting. Let me put the audio on. So let us start with the prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are reviewing the second verse that Swami Maheshananji has opted to comment on after the first one, which was Tasmad Virad Jayata. The second one is Tasmat Yagyat Sarvahutaha Sambhritam Prishadajyam Pashtu Pashugastagas Chakre Vayavyana Aranyan Gramyaschaye. This is the verse that we are going through. I was thinking, I think when we were doing the first verse in the towards the very beginning, maybe the third or the fourth class, there was a comment and a question made by one of you. I haven't looked, I don't remember who that was, which said, because when we were giving the explanation of the verse, that person said, where does it say that here? I don't find that those words, those sentiments, those concepts in these things. So I was just thinking, I'll make a comment on that. This is a explanation by a highly, a very wise person. Swami Maheshananji, if you look at his history, the books that he has written, his following, and forget about the following, just for anyone like me who has been studying Vedanta for so long, when I see his language, the words that he uses, the concepts that he explains, I can tell this is not an ordinary person. It all fits together so nicely. So when you have a commentator like that, then Swami Dayanandji had given a very good example of this. He said, if you have a person who has designed a mechanism. Let's say the parts of a motorcycle. All the parts he's the chief designer. He knows all the parts, the size of the screws, the fittings, everything. He knows cold. Okay. Now, having done so, if you bring a part to him or her, that person will say, oh, this one is the front wheel, and it goes into this part of the front wheel. And so he has a very good vision of the total thing, and then the parts all make sense to him. As opposed to someone else who would look for specific meaning for that bolt or for a nut and the size of it, where does it go, not sure where does it go. This is what happens when we are putting some things together without a manual of instruction. Anyway, what I'm saying is this. As we unfold these verses, you will find that a person like Swami Maheshananji or Swami Dayanandji, my two main gurus for my sadhana, of course Swami Chinmayanandji originally, but these two people, their vision is so complete and so clear that when they see a verse, they can put meanings into it which fits the overall vision. You see, that's the point I'm making. So I wouldn't worry about where does it say that, where is it the exact meaning of this. It will be very close, but it could actually exceed what is given in the Upanishads or any mantras or suktams and so on. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point. So, what we were reviewing in the last class was that the creation by the Purusha is in the form of a yajna, is in the form of a spiritual ritual, a very precise ritual. And that's what yajna is. And as you know, as we went over this, the yajna has three parts to it. So one is dravya, the second one is devata, and the third one is kriya. So the essence of the yajna is that something is presented to the devata, something is given up, and the devata has to be carefully chosen so that what is being given up makes sense to the devata. And then also the kriya, meaning that the person who is undertaking this ritual must have a very clear idea, what is it that I want? And many of you already, almost all of you know this word, swaha. So when something is given, it is case swaha. So we should understand what the meaning of the word swaha is. The word swaha means it is a combination of su plus aha. So su means sushtu. Sushtu means very well, perfect. It cannot be any better than this. Aha means what is said. And so swaha means it follows a mantra of some kind. And then the swaha means this is what I have learned from the Shastra. And so these are your words. Really, I am just repeating your words. And my offering may be accepted by you, O Devata, and may you bless me because I don't know what else to do. This is the best I have done. So the Swaha is actually in agreement. You get your you get your blessings right away for the offering of that mantra. This is the word Swaha. Anyway, going back to the three main constituents of Yajna: Dravya, Devata, and Kriya. Now, we'll go into the Dravya in a minute, but the Devata example was taken up last week, where somebody was just saying something, Narayana and Vasudeva, not really knowing what it is. And so this is an important thing. You're addressing the Devata must be done with a good understanding of what the Devata is. So the better you understand, and we will go into this in more detail. I'll just give you the final answer. The final answer is here in this Sarvahutaha, as we will do. The Devata is Paramatma, is my own Atma, is a Paramatma, which is nothing but the Jivatma. But I don't know the exact nature of the Paramatma who is impelling me. I just don't know that. So the more I know about it, the clearer my picture is about what my Atma really means. Right now I am oblivious of it. I don't know the treasure that I have, that I am. Forget about what I have. The treasure that I am. I don't know that. And so I'm unaware of that, and this is the consequence of the way I view the world. I'm unaware. It's kind of like, in some way, if I don't know that I have $1 million in the bank, and these days million is not that much, everybody's talking about billions. So if I don't know if I have leave aside billion, just even $1 million, if I don't know that I have that account in the bank ready to be tapped, and I feel like a homeless person who is begging for food from time to time, this is our situation in life. We don't know the Devata who is unlimitedly helpful to me, and I have really complete freedom of even from time and space and so on. I don't know that. So as a result, I act like a very limited person. I beg for small morsels of goods in the world. And so the understanding of Devata is very important. Now let's go to Dravya. So before going into Dravya, I think let me postpone that for a minute. Just a reminder for you from last week that this verse which says Tasmat Yajnat Sarvahutaha. Sarvahutaha. So Hutaha is the past passive participle of Homa. So Homa Karanam, the act of doing Homa, is when it is done, it is called Hutaha. It is done. Homa is done, called Hutaha. So just a very quick recap of what the Homa means in the language of Yajna. So Homa is a special form of Yajna. It's a subset of Yajna. Yajna is a more general term, and Homa is a special version of that. Why and how? What does it mean? It means this is something that requires some time and effort and patience. And I would say probably the best example of that is planting a seed in your backyard. So you put a tomato seed and you do it with a seed. You can do that with a plant also. And now what you need to do is to nurture it. And this is what is called sinchanam. So homa, the peculiarity of homa is sinchanam. Sinchanam means cultivating it, nurturing it. So it is not something, like a ready-made food, but you now have to make it grow. And we know that if you have a child in the house who gets very impatient and says, the mother says, you have to be very patient. Okay, put the soil on top of that and put a little bit of water. So this little bit of water is an important thing. It has to be done in stages. So very exactly the same way, supposing you go and do a homa in the temple, and the priest says, I need 1 pound of ghee. Ghee is a very important part in the homa. And so the priest said, okay, now we're going to put the ghee in. And so supposing you are holding the vessel and you put the entire 1 pound into the fire, what will happen is that the fire will get extinguished. So you have done everything that you have done the tyaga, but it is not the way to do it. It's just like supposing you put a bucket of water into the seed, then the seed is it's going to be overwhelmed. So you have to put a little bit of water. And so the idea of a homa is to nurture growth. And you don't have too much time in the temple for doing a homa. Homas usually take much more longer time. And so with this 108 names, so the priest will say, okay, every time I say this mantra, you either you repeat it with me, or if you don't want to do it, I'll do the mantra. But as soon as I do it, take a little bit of the ghee and do swaha into the yagni. And then you have to do it 108 times, and then you have some other things going on. It might take a couple of hours to do. A yagya can be done in half hour, but a homa takes a longer time. So the meaning of that in our life should now be clear. And I'd like to make another comment on this meaning of this in our life. In our scriptures it is said, Swami Dayanand had made it so clear, and Swami Maheshanandji also made it even more detailedly clear. The teaching of Vedanta is like showing a mirror to you. And it cannot be done any other way to show you who you are. You need a mirror to know what you look like. If you don't have a reflecting surface, you cannot turn your eyes inside to look at yourself. And Vedanta scriptures acts as a very clear mirror, unblemished, to show you exactly who you are. So here Swami Dayanandji had made this comment, and I think many of my students have made the same comments before, that if you want to go look for a mirror, you actually have to do shopping of the mirror. I remember this when I was a youngster. My grandfather decided there was a very old mirror which was getting all blotchy and he becomes yellow, and so we all went out to buy a mirror. This is, I'm talking about 40s, 1940s. And at that time, there was a Belgian mirror which was supposed to be blemishless and would last you for a long time, was very expensive. And my grandfather said, I think we might as well invest in that. So we looked at the right size of the mirror, we measured where it is going to go. So at that time, the whole shopping was for the mirror. And then when we brought in, then we have to fix some holes in the wall, hang it, adjust it so that it's horizontal, and it's all this time. The main focus was on the mirror, shopping for the mirror. Then after the mirror is affixed, you forget about the mirror. And when you look at the mirror, you're really looking at yourself, isn't it? Swami Maheshananji made even a better point than that. He says, the mirror disappears from your view, especially these wall-to-wall mirrors. If you have a framed mirror, then the frame is visible to you. But supposing you have a wall-to-wall mirror, you don't even realize it's a mirror. You are just completely looking at yourself at all the time. Okay? So why am I saying this? This is an important thing to see. The explanation of the Shastric verses, including Purusha Suktam, is like shopping for a mirror. When you are trying to understand what Purusha Suktam is saying, you are examining the mirror. Is this what it is saying? Oh, I see. Is this the right picture? You have to ask yourself, all of that you have to keep on doing it. But at this time, Shravanam is shopping for the mirror. Then there comes a point where what the Shastra is saying in the text here, Tasmat Yagyat Sarvahutaha Sambhritam Prishadajyam Pashugastachakkre Vayavyana Aranyan Gramyaschaye. This now becomes your vision. Until you are understanding, and you have not completely understood the word meaning and the sentence meaning, it is mirror shopping. But once the whole thing is clear, now you have to see your own life. So I am bringing this up because right now we are saying this, that the entire creation is in the form of a yajna. And this is new to me. I didn't understand this, supposing. And so this is at this time mirror shopping. I don't know how big the mirror is, where to put it in. You're still examining the mirror. You're still examining the words. You're examining the concepts behind it. But once you are clear that this is a yajna, life is a yajna, you now have to see my life as a yajna. This is where the utility of the learning and teaching is. It is not reading books, not reading, but to exactly see what it says about me. I should see whether it is true or not. What it says about me is always true, but whether I see it as true or not makes all the difference. So this is something that we need to keep in mind as we go forward with this. So here, what it says is that our life should be seen as a yajna. And in fact, I should convert that yajna to a homa. Because how It is not as though I am just doing my yajna once or twice and that's done. This is a cultivation, this is the nurturing that will take a while, and I should see the results of it. So let's look at how and why. So now, a couple of you had actually sent me some emails to clarify this. And let me shut off my phone. I keep it on in case there's some problem and one of you might be calling me, but I think everything is going on okay. So the dravya here, so let's do an overall sense of this yajna. Tasmat yajnat sarvahuta. Let's do the overall one. And then we're going to look into the constituents of it in terms of sambritam prashadajyam, what does it mean? Pashugasta chakre vayavyana and aranyan gramyaschaye. Some very significant things here. It will take us several classes to go through all this. So let's be very clear about this. But before we go into the details of it, and we will all wrap it at the end, let us look at an overall structure. The overall structure is that if you want limited results, then the choice of devata and the choice of tyaga can also be limited. There are various yajnas performed. So for example, King Janaka, who wanted to give his entire wealth away, his entire kingdom, was able to achieve complete freedom by giving the entire wealth. Or you can say that I'm willing to give some things to this. I'm going to do some charitable things. I'm going to feed so many thousands of people, or like we do in Aim for Seva. Then you get some limited results as a result of that. And then the devata is also carefully chosen, whether it is Saraswati or Lakshmi or Ganesha or any one of the devatas. But if I want complete freedom, total freedom, now I have to do jnana yajna. So therefore, then you had dravya yajna, to go to the temple and do it, or as we do japa yajna, as we saw, we gave the example of being very truthful and not criticizing anyone, and then you can do japa. That also will give you some wonderful results, no doubt about it. But because absolute freedom is already mine, I don't understand it, I have ignorance of it, then jnana yajna is the final answer. If that's what I want to choose, you don't have to do it. You can say that first of all, I don't know if that's true or not. That's what most people stop at. They don't know if something is true. Or if you have to be lucky enough to be told, yes, it's possible, then you can still decide that I am not sure that I can do this. You can try, but you don't have to be a complete, you cannot have to do a complete yajna. But suppose you say, that is what I want to do. Then what you need to do is to make Parameshwara your devata. You make yourself as a desirer of complete freedom and not just say it but act on it. And the Tyaga, so let's now talk about Tyaga for a while. This is where we want to spend some time on it. Has to be total. Sarvahutaha. Sarvan kaman parityajya. You have to really give up the whole thing. So here also, as we in the Kaivalya Upanishad, you've heard this verse that we do when we welcome a sannyasi to our home. Then we say, na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyage naike amritatvamanshu parena na kanmihitan guhayam vibrajate yatayo vishanti, etc., etc. we say. The start of that is na karmana, not from any actions, na prajaya, not depending upon my progeny to release me from this. The progeny can perhaps impel you into a better loka, but not give you instant freedom, or not giving you total freedom. Not only instant, not even total freedom. That you have to do. Then dhanena na. So you cannot take the wealth with you. That wealth is also just a temporary thing. Tyagena eke. The only way amritatvam anashuhu. Amritatvam means immortality. Freedom from death. Freedom from disease. Amritatvam. If you aspire for that, the only way is Tyaga. And what the nature of the Tyaga is, we will now see. Similarly, in the Ishavasya Upanishad, Ishavasyam idagum sarvam, etc. Then the second verse is, Tena tyaktena bhunjithaha magritaha kasyasvit dhanam. So we have done Ishavasyam in our classes. So the very second verse is Tyaktena. Here it is Arsha language. It is should be Tyagena means Tyaktena. So you and I cannot use Tyaktena, but he means Tyagena. And so Upanishadic language is different. So it means Tena Tyagena Bhunjitaha. May you protect this knowledge with Tyaga. And what is meant by Tyaga here? So the overall picture now to summarize is, the Tyaga means your sense of attachment to Anatma must be given up. And in my view, it comes in two stages. In our view, not just my view, but in the Vedantic view, it comes in two stages. This Tyaga of giving up the Anatma. And as you know, the Anatma means one which is not really true. One which is not really true, it just appears to be like that, but it's not really true. It's called mithya. So the two stages of Tyaga will be as follows. Let me tell you the second stage first, and then I will go to the first stage for a reason. The second stage is when you have progressed to a point where you understand what the nature of mithyatvam is. That the whole experience of my life is like a dream, and the dream is mithya, and even my waking state is also nothing but mithya. If this is clear to you, you don't have to worry about giving up. You don't have any real attachment to things that are false. Supposing you get these, you play some card games, and then they have these paper dollars, and it looks like a dollar. It cannot look exactly like a dollar, that is illegal. But they try to make it very much like that and still be legal. But you don't have any attachment to it. Even though it's a $5 note and a $100 note, it is just for play. You don't really have any attachment. You cannot have an attachment for it. So that's the second stage. The first stage is the preparation for the second stage. And what it means is, even when you think things are real, you have to start practicing Tyaga. You have to start practicing Tyaga. And it'll be difficult for you to go to the second stage unless you do the practice of the first stage. It's kind of like, when you want to be a swimmer. And to be a swimmer means you don't think about drowning or you struggling or anything. It is such a beauty to see these kids who are not even moving their limbs. I don't know how they do it. I've never been able to learn how to swim. As soon as I get into the water, I am very careful and I can hardly survive for like 15 seconds maybe. Go from one place to the other. I'm not a good swimmer at all. And I'm not even a swimmer. And so as soon as I get into the water, I start to become, tight, not relaxed. But if I do want to learn swimming, they recommend you please get into the water. This is how the swimming is taught. That you pretend as though you are swimming until you are ready for swimming. So pretending that you are doing Tyaga, and it is not pretension, it is really real. So let's talk a little bit about the first stage. What it means is, and this is part of, remember we were talking about not looking at it as a mirror, but looking at it as me. You have to, the mirror says, this is window shopping, this is mirror shopping, na karmana na prajaya, this is what the mirror says. But what it says about me is, I need to be totally convinced that I am not going to find total freedom until I start practicing Tyaga, giving up. Giving up here means not money giving up or anything. It means I am not hung up on things that I used to be hung up before. I should see things not bothering me. And I need to practice that. And I need to measure if I am making progress or not. And this is part of the Homa. You see now? The Homa means it's not just a plain yajna. Homa means that you have to slowly nurture it. Put a little bit more water into it. And then see if the plant is growing. If your Tyaga is not growing, then please take a pause. and really either give up and say, forget it, I am not going to do this. I hope you don't, but it's an option. Or you say, what else can I do? And every time you do something, you have to see, what am I supposed to do? And what you will find is that if you do it right, in other words, if you are watering it regularly, if you are fertilizing it, if you are protecting it from cold, like I have a tulsi plant that I planted last year, and the person who gave the tulsi plant to me said, I don't recommend that you put down on outside in the ground. You please take that in. And I've done that before, but it didn't do very well. Last year I decided I'm going to make this tulsi plant stay outside, and I'm going to cover it when there is a frost and take good care of it. And I've gotten good results. My tulsi plant is now, it's about 3 or 4 feet wide, 4 or 5 feet tall, and the winter is approaching. I hope I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's doing well. I've got lots of leaves. So I know that what I'm doing is working. Similarly in Tyaga, what I have to see, you have to do it. And you have to see what the Tyaga is buying you. What are you gaining from it? And if you have been studying Vedanta, you've been mirror shopping, what Vedanta says is, by giving up, you receive something bigger, which is an inner peace. Try it. I remember, I think I might have mentioned it to you in some of the classes. There was this American guru. His name is Baba Ramdas. You may have heard of him. He and Timothy Leary and all of these people, they used to do a lot of high-powered psychedelic drugs, I think in Boston. Either they were teachers or students at MIT, somewhere there. And there was a period when they were experimenting with psychedelic drugs. And then many of them are turned to gurus in India. And Baba Ramdas, I forget what his first name, Alpert, I think. Anyway, he was from this area. So when we graduated from the Piercy ashram in 1982, I was living in Los Gatos at that time. I saw an advertisement in the paper that Baba Ramdas is going to be talking in Santa Cruz. Early 80s, it's 83 or so. I actually moved into the current home in 85, so it must have been between 82 and 85, somewhere there. And I was curious to see, because I'd heard his name. So I went to listen to his discourse, and it was very highly attended. There were literally 1,000 people in there. A very charismatic figure. And it was accompanied by music and was very well done. And he talked a lot about it. And and I had also been studying Vedanta with Swami Dayanandji for 2.5 years, and I had finally gotten a good grounding of what Vedantic concepts are. And so I was curious to see what time is it? 8:42. I was curious to see what he has to say. And I remember only one thing from his talk. And he was a disciple of Karoli Baba, Neem Karoli Baba in India. I don't know much about him. I assume that he is a very wise person. He understands the reality. And so he was saying that what I have learned from my guru, and this is the part that I remember, is until you give up everything, you don't receive everything. Is this true? I think he got it right. Of course, he didn't have time to explain it. He was just making a kind of a fashion statement, so to speak, for everybody. But as a Vedantin, I thought, yeah, he's right. This is true. He got that right. So this is what it is, Tyaga. So, a few more comments about the first stage of the Tyaga before you go to the second stage. Second stage is where you now understand very well everything is mithya and you don't have to worry about it. But the first stage is where we have to struggle because the world still appears very real to us. I have to deal with it. I'm studying it, but I'm not there to the point where I can see it as mithya. This is the first stage. What do I do in the first stage? All I can tell you is my own experiences and offer this as an advice. You know, this is the thing, when we were talking about going into a pool and you have to start making your limbs move as though you are swimming. So this Swami Dayanand used to say that, many of your students know this. Fake it until you make it. This is a very good advice actually. So fake it doesn't mean that you fake it period, but you fake it as the first stage of the second stage. The second stage is your swimming will be effortless. And so you will see that in the second stage is that you will see the whole world as a mithya. But the first stage is you are struggling, but you are doing the right things. What is it that you have to do in the Tyaga? This is what I wanted to tell you. What I would recommend is start discussing with your mind not to take things too seriously. Start to use concepts to your mind like, it's okay, let it go, it's all right, let's not be bothered about it. And the mind initially will say, what? Have you changed your stripes? That person just ignored you. He hardly even looked at you. Aren't you bothered about it? And you may indeed be bothered by it initially, as you have been all your life. Because, we have a certain idea. This is my position in life. People need to take me very seriously. And if somebody insults me, I'm going to complain. And people have to respect who I am. I'm not a great person, but I am someone. Okay? And I need to be given the proper placement. This is the way I always operated. And then my spouse should not unduly criticize me. There's no reason to do that. I don't expect that kind of a criticism. He or she was criticizing me just a few months ago, and again, she is the same thing again. I don't want that. And I have a long list of such things. Expectation. I kind of like looking at myself and saying, this is who I am, okay? You have to tell your mind. And then something happens contrary to that. At first, you have to tell your mind, it's okay. It's all right. A very interesting example would be, this happened to me, I think, about a year back. And I burst out laughing, honestly, just sitting in the car by myself. So I was supposed to go to an appointment. I think it was a doctor's appointment at Palo Alto. Yeah, I think it was. And I usually go there about 20, I measure it very carefully, how long will it take me. And so this time I was a bit early. And the traffic happened to be extremely light. So now I'm thinking, my God, I'm going to get there about 15 minutes early. What am I going to there? So let me, you cannot slow down because the people behind you are going to honk at you. But you are just very careful and deliberate in driving and so on. So stretch it to 20 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Then I remember on Page Mill, I was stuck behind, the light had turned red, and I was stuck behind about 10 or 12 cars. And as we were approaching, my mind was saying, I hope we don't miss this light. This is the usual thing that we do. Whenever we go someplace, we just say, oh my God, oh, I hope it doesn't turn red again. Then I have to wait for a longer time. And I burst out laughing. I said, this is so interesting. I am trying to be late. And now my habits are that I don't want to miss this green light. How silly can you be? This is exactly what we do. And so, for instance, you go to an airport and you have a flight to catch. Now, unless you are one of those people that reaches there 2 hours really early, if you just go for a normal time, of course these days I haven't even flown, so I don't know what the traffic is, but when there used to be the normal time, you would go there I usually get there about an hour early. And so supposing the traffic is really bad, it has been a couple of times, you start worrying. And your mind says, I told you you should have started at an earlier time. You're not listening. Why do you put yourself into this situation? You're getting stressed up. This is all you talking to yourself, your own mind. The advice under the new Tyaga rules is, so I missed the flight. Okay, what's the big thing? What is the big issue? So I miss it. So I'll go tomorrow. No, tomorrow there may not be any place. Okay, so there won't be another place. What's the big thing? It just reminds me, yesterday, just funny thing happened. So my wife's nephew, who has 2 young kids, was visiting us. One is about 3 and the other one is 1 1/4. Two girls. So we were sitting outside in the backyard, and they were with us for like 45 minutes or so. And then the mom had to take the older one to the bathroom inside the house, and the younger one was left with her dad. Well, she did not like being left by her mom. Her mom was gone. As soon as the door closed, she was trying to say, I want to go too. Of course, my nephew's wife could not take 2 girls into the bathroom. So he asked her husband, you please take care of this young one. The bawling that went in, the crying, the shrieking, her whole life had ended. And we tried to give her this, and look, there's a beautiful tree. Nothing. She was bawling. And I sat there, I said, this is so interesting. This is how our mind works, really. We get extremely upset. I still remember one time Swami Dayanandji was talking about this actually in Rishikesh. So what happened was that I was at Rishikesh at that time, and he had to go to New Delhi, and he would take a car, which is crazy. Yes, the traffic there is. One time Swamiji went to Delhi in the morning, attended a meeting and came back to Rishikesh. Each one of them is like 7 hours. But at this time, he was going to catch a plane from Dehradun to New Delhi. I was there in attending one of his classes. And the problem at the old Dehradun airstrip was that it could not accommodate really big planes. And so it was just these small propeller driven planes. And anytime there was a bad weather, they would cancel it. And so Swamiji had to go, he was telling us all this, I remember this so well. So we went to the airport, checked in and everything. At the last minute, the airline says, sorry sir, this is, the flight has not arrived from Delhi because the weather is bad, so we have to cancel it. Swamiji says the people, my students and so on, they were so upset. And they were throwing tantrums. You guys, why did you not cancel it ahead of time? You made us come all the way and you're so unreliable. Swamiji says they were so upset that I looked at them and I says, oh my gosh, they have not learned. This is exactly like this nephew's daughter. You know, we'll say, she's going to be back in 3 minutes. What's the big deal? No, I want my mom right now. So Tyaga, the first stage is you get into the habit of telling your mind, it doesn't matter. It's okay. And do you know, in a short amount of time, that I have adopted this, just in a few years, my life has really changed. I can just tell you this. Things that were potentially bothersome to me are not bothersome. Whatever happens, happens. I'm happy with the way I am. So, I am not sure that I see the mithyatvam of the world yet as clearly. It'll happen. But I'm sure making good progress on the first stage, that while it is real, my vasanas that keep telling me, you gotta do this, people have to behave you with a certain way. Gone. Not completely gone, but I would say a many, many diminished one. What a peaceful, relaxed attitude it gives you. And so the Tyaga has to be done really, slowly, nurturing it like a homa. And then there is a feedback loop too. It's not theoretical. Just like you are putting a seed in and the kids get very angsty. And how come I haven't seen anything? Say it'll happen. 3-4 days it happens. Then the sprout comes in. And don't touch it. Just let it be. And it starts to grow. And then you just nurture it. You can see the growth right in front of your eyes. So this is why Tyaga, a sense of giving up unnecessary things. And by the same token, just be at peace with yourself is something you should see in person, feel it, experience it, under the careful eye of the Shastra, which says, yes, this is what you need to do. You are childish, my friend. You are upset about things that are just not necessary, just because you have not really understood things as well as you should. The spirituality has not yet taken hold, but please, this is the direction you have to go. So It's interesting. There's a lot to be said. The Sambhritam Prashadajyam will be the next topic. Then the Pashu, the status of being a Pashu, is another topic. And then the main topic will be Aranyan Gramyaschaye, which will take us quite a while. Beautiful, lot of material that Swami Maheshananji has given. But I would just end with one very interesting example. A clip of a talk by a Swami was sent by a friend of mine just last couple of days. And I laughed about seeing the clip. Really a very beautiful segment of a talk. I don't even know who the Swami is, but my friend sent it to me. So Swamiji was saying, listen, suppose you go to a discourse in a temple, and the person who's giving you the discourse is also telling you. So this is the time when the sthapana for the mandir for Rama was done recently in Ayodhya. You must have heard about that. So it was, I think, somewhere around that time where this clip was made. So he says, supposing you go to a temple and you're listening to a talk, a discourse about Rama. And he says, at the end of the talk, we have some murti, some vigraha, some wooden vigraha of Rama, and also a vigraha for Ravana. And you are welcome to choose any one of them. So everybody said, of course we're going to choose Rama. And because we want to see the figure of Rama in my home temple, I don't want to see Ravana with his teeth, canine teeth protruding out, and perhaps, I don't know whether they had 10 heads or not, scary looking person and so on, who epitomizes everything bad in this life. Bad everything. We have a person even in this country who I will not name, who I think is a modern Ravana. This is the way I look at him. Modern Ravana. No morals, no nothing. Powerful, smart. Anyway. So, going back to the story, there are two vigrahas. One is the Rama vigraha and one is the Ravana vigraha. And so let's say there's a husband and wife who are both sitting there listening to this. They both look at each other and says, yeah, Rama, of course this is what we're going to get. So he says, okay, then please at the end of this you go into that room and then you can choose which of the two you want. You can just do that. So they all said, okay. They all started to gather up their things, going towards it. At the very end he says, oh, I forgot to tell you this. The Rama statue is made in wood, but the Ravana statue is made in 22 karat gold. And now, all the husbands and wives, if they were couples sitting there, all start to look at each other. And they're saying, actually, even if we have Ravana, we are not going to worship him. Then who knows that, supposing we need some gold, so at least we have gold, right? They all say, yeah, let's go for Ravana. So there goes the spirituality out of the door, and there comes in the the worldly nature of their decision making, and so on. And so, a beautiful story, really. As long as they are both the same, you always go for the Rama. But if there is money involved, then maybe I should lie a little bit. I don't have to declare my income. This is our situation. And so it's a very beautiful way to really deal with things, where whenever something is upsetting to you, do not be under the control of your mind, which says, are you going to allow this? You shouldn't. Talk back. Then you say, it's okay. Let it go. If the other person is raving and ranting and this, that, or the other, then let it go. It's okay. But aren't you going to be upset about this? Maybe. But the sting of it is slowly going away. You are happy with yourself, much less dependent on what happens to you. You are on your way to independence. So this is the homa of life. So tasmat yagyat sarva hutaha. And don't be partial that I'm going to be tolerant of certain people, not of other people. Sarva hutaha. Whatever happens to you. Anyway, we'll continue with this. So with that, I will close the class and see if you had any questions. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. That's not it. To go to a different site. Yep. Okay. So Balamani had asked, is yajnam to be done by any special person, Brahmin or saint? So yes, the way I look at it is that this is should be done by a person who is very well informed about the details of the yajna. And it should be, so the chanting has to be done properly, and it should be done uh, correctly and so on. And so the Brahmins are the ones who are entrusted with the task of doing it correctly. So it's not necessary that it will be done by the Brahmins. But the way I look at it, once there was a discussion about this some time ago. With Swami Dayanandji, long time ago, 30, 40 years ago, he was saying that the rituals done by a Brahmin, or not even a Brahmin, but a ritual done by a knowledgeable person in a temple setting or a home setting, is kind of like the practice of classical music. And a puja done by a good person, doesn't have to be a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or anyone, but just anyone, is kind of like filmy music. So what it means is that a classical music requires a lot of study. You have to know the ragas very precisely. Even though you have a lot of freedom to go around the ragas, but as you know, they all come back at the end and follow the meter very well. And so the classical music requires a lot of study, a lot of application, and so on and so forth. And if this is interesting. A friend of mine recently passed away just last week. And even some of the pujas that we have gotten done and so on, I usually, if it is possible, go to someone that does the pronunciation of Sanskritam very accurately. I do not find North Indian Pandits in this area. Most of them mispronounce, and I cringe at it. And this recently, the Antyeshti for my friend was also done by a North Indian Pandit. Even the Purusha Suktam he did not pronounce properly. And it is sad. So I would say Brahmins if possible, but more than that, it should be done by a knowledgeable person. Saint, no, not necessary. The saints don't do, Swamis don't do yajnas. They are not supposed to, and they don't. That's the Purva Bhaga, before their life. Now, and they have a new identity, and they don't do any. But it should be done by a Pandit. Jaya Chaudhary, Richard Albert, Baba Ramdas died in December 2019 in Maui. Jaya, yes, I remember seeing that. And that whole scene that I was reciting from 1983, so was very fresh in my mind. There was one chant that his people were doing that is very beautiful. I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, something like Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. So there, before his talk, he had a number of his students who performed music, and some of the beautiful. This was not the only one that sticks in my mind from that 1982. And then that example that you have to give up everything before you have to do that. So Namaste Guruji, I have never replied on the chat before. Please excuse me for being tardy. Nemo Dog. I'm not sure what the name is connected to Nemo dog. Sorry. I think you may have mentioned that to me before. Santi Kumar, yes, please go. Wonderful. Vandana Agarwal, how does one practice let it go if other people are involved? No, Vandana, this is a very personal thing. It has nothing to do with other people involved or not. I see what your point is. You're saying that should you, if you have, let's say, a child with you, and should you say let it go to that child also? That's a good question. I wouldn't necessarily do that. It all depends upon, because you don't have force. On the other hand, I think that if you're a good relationship with the child, well, let's take some other example. Supposing it is you and your spouse, and you want to say let it go, but the spouse says no, then I would not really press the thing. You can say, you know what, let it go. But the spouse might say, what do you mean let it go? This is ridiculous. That person shouldn't have done that. She says, okay, I see your viewpoint. You cannot ask anybody else to do this. Don't pontificate. This is just for you. This is just for you. You can be patient with the other person and say, hopefully, and the other person, if it's a spouse, for example, will see that this person's attitude is really changing. Because at first you might think that he's just a fake. He's afraid to speak up. Now if it's a child involved, then you're setting a good example. Again, don't push it too much, but slowly just say, this is something, let it go. It's all right. So yeah, if that's what you mean, I hope I understand your question. Or other family members. Yes, of course. Yeah, so if there are, as I mentioned, if there are other family members, then, but also don't flaunt it. This is very much of an internal thing. This will be worst thing if you tell everybody, you see how great I am? I'm letting it go and other people are not getting it done. See, I really reached a height. You're not going to do that, but don't even think that. So sometimes you may even have to, you may even have to fake reaction. I remember Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, sometimes when, let's say you have children misbehave on something that repeatedly they have been told not to do something, but in spite of that they still do it. Now the husband and wife both look at each other and say, you know what, we need to raise our voice. That person is not listening. So they all look at each other and say, who's going to do it? Okay, you do it this time. So now what you do is, you fake anger. Because real anger you cannot fake. You cannot even command real anger. If I tell everybody, okay, now please get angry for the next 5 minutes. How are you going to get angry? By edict. Anger comes up inside without your knowing it. So when it comes to talking to a child, you cannot really get angry, but you say, you know what, I think we need to really be angry. So you say, listen, how many times have we told you not to do this? And you keep doing this. And we're tired of doing this. Inside you're winking at yourself and it says, I think I'm doing okay. This is faking anger. So similarly here also you say, that you shouldn't have said that to me, this, that or the other. Inside you're saying, so what? Let them say whatever they want. I'm okay without it. Raj says, you may be referring to my comment about where the details are to be found in this teaching. I very much enjoy the depth being presented and drawn from a full picture. Thank you. Yes, Raj. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. And so what it means is that if it comes from a Mahatma who really does have a very clear picture, then some of the details may be overdrawn because it fills some of the empty spaces. Yes, so that can be done. Thank you for reminding me. Nemo Dog, I just found the class right now. This is a topic that I've started working on just for the last few days. I'm so enjoying your teaching. I hope that I might continue to take the class. Of course, absolutely. I do recommend that you kindly send me an email so I put you on the roster, because occasionally we cancel classes and I don't want you to be hanging there without any prior notice. So that's all. Okay, anything else? I think a couple of times people say that they write a comment but I'm gone by then, and so just trying to take the time to do so. Hopefully there's nothing that I've missed. So all right, good. We will see you next week then. Hari Om.